April 1943. During World War II. For over 2 years, parts of Poland had been under German control. Day by day, the Jewish population was being reduced, taken away from their homes. In one village, the last remaining Jewish families were being gathered to be sent to a camp. Among them was a small family, a 12-year-old boy named Max, his mother, and his little sister. They were held captive by German soldiers. When Max's sister felt thirsty, he tried to fill some water from outside using an old shoe. His mother, knowing what awaited them, gently encouraged him, saying, "What will we do without you? You're brave, my smart boy." Max loved drawing. All his sketches were left behind at home, but his mother comforted him, saying he could always make new ones. Soon after, German soldiers arrived to take them away. As they stepped outside, Max's mother urged him to be clever and escape. She told him to go to his aunt, who would keep him safe, and gave him a few documents and photos to remember them by. Max didn't want to leave, but his mother insisted. He managed to slip past the soldiers and ran off. On the way, he saw many bodies of those who had been killed, which filled him with sorrow. When he reached his aunt, she asked where his mother was. Max said the soldiers had taken her and his sister. Realizing their fate, his aunt was devastated. She explained that she and his uncle were going into hiding in a small bunker, but children weren't allowed. She had arranged for Max to stay with a Christian farming family. Max broke down, thinking she was abandoning him too, but his aunt reassured him that his mother hadn't left him. She had protected him, just as she was doing now. She promised that when the war ended, they would come back for him. Max was placed with a farmer named Jasko, who hid him in his wagon and took him home. Jasko lived in a Polish village surrounded by forests, an area under German control. Jasko's family included his wife Kasia and their young daughter. To protect Max, Jasko gave him a new identity, saying his name would now be different. He created a story that Max was his sister's son, whose parents had died, and since they had no children, they decided to take him in. Jasko warned Max that he must remember this story, because if anyone found out the truth, his whole family's life would be in danger. Max understood and agreed. Jasko then burned Max's old clothes and gave him new ones so no one would suspect he was Jewish. Days passed, and Max helped Jasko in the fields and assisted Kasia with chores. Jasko also taught him how to set traps. Life seemed calm for a while, and Max adjusted quickly. However, Jasko didn't let Max sleep in the house. He stayed in the shed. In truth, there was a deal between them. Max's aunt was supposed to pay Jasko for keeping him safe, but so far, Jasko hadn't received any money. One day, Jasko comes home and says the Germans have discovered their bunker and took everyone away. That means they won't be paid for hiding Max anymore. Max is heartbroken. A German officer then visits and accuses them of hiding a Jewish person. Jasko denies it, but the soldiers start searching the house. Max quickly hides photos of his mother and sister in the fireplace. The officer, trying to scare them, lights a cigarette and drops a match into the hearth. The photos begin to burn, and Max feels awful inside. The officer asks about the boy and whether he is Jasko's child. Max answers exactly as he was taught, speaking confidently, so the soldiers suspect nothing. A short time later, the soldiers searched Jasko's barn and found the vegetables Max had hidden there. They suspected someone was hiding a Jewish person and forced Jasko to kneel, threatening to harm him in front of his family. Jasko said the vegetables were for his wife's piglets, and after a warning, the officer left. After that, Yasko came to Max and said he was sorry, but could no longer hide him. It was too dangerous, and they were no longer being paid. People in the village would turn someone in for a reward, so Yasko feared for his family. Yasko took Max into the nearby forest and showed him a small cave by a river. He told Max to stay hidden there, to live off mushrooms, berries, and what he could trap, and to only eat ground mushrooms, not those growing on wood. He warned Max not to light fires near the shelter, to erase his tracks, and to avoid leaving signs of where he'd been. Max was devastated, but had no choice. He gave Yasko his coat, and Yasko left him alone in the woods. Max survived there, living by the skills Yasko had taught him. He began to feel very lonely, so he carved faces on stones, pictures of his family, and talked to them like they were there. Rain was hard on him. His clothes got soaked and he ached. Sometimes he shouted at the sky, asking why this was happening to him and why he was living like an animal in the forest. Slowly, he learned to survive. At first, he found little to eat, and a 12-year-old could not expect much, but he improved. One night he heard noises, probably villagers who hunted persecuted people for the reward. Max froze. They came close, but by luck did not search further and left. He often dreamed of his mother and sister. Their faces haunted him, but he never spoke about them because the photos had burned. Instead, he kept their memory in his mind. Time passed, and one day, while Max was hiding in the bushes, a younger boy appeared. He was also Jewish and had escaped from German soldiers into the forest. The boy looked frightened when he saw Max, but Max calmly spoke to him and introduced himself. The boy's name was Yannick, and it seemed his entire family had been gone. He told Max that his mother had gone out to find food, but never returned. Since then, he had been hiding in a secret spot, but hunger had finally forced him to come out. Max comforted him, saying, "Don't worry, I'll take care of you. My mother always said I'm brave and smart." He brought Yannick to his cave and shared some food with him. Max said, "This is my secret place. You can stay here if you want. I'll teach you how to live here." Max had finally found the one thing he missed the most, a companion. They both went out to cut wood. Max said he was thinking about becoming a Christian because he believed their God protected them, and maybe then he wouldn't have to hide in the forest anymore. Yannick asked how someone could become a Christian, and Max replied sadly, "If I knew that, I wouldn't be stuck here." Living together made life a little easier for Max. At least he wasn't alone anymore. But because there were now two of them, food became even harder to find. One morning, while Yannick was still sleeping, Max went out alone to search for food. On his way, a German soldier caught him. The soldier tied Max up and took him home. When the soldier's wife saw the young boy's injured hands, she felt terrible and scolded her husband. She brought Max inside and gave him something to eat. The German soldier said they had been ordered to find and persecute Jews, calling them parasites. Hearing this terrified Max. He waited for the right moment, grabbed a chicken, and escaped back into the woods. When he returned to the cave, he found Yannick crying. Yannick thought Max had left him, but Max explained he had only gone to find food. After many days, they finally managed to get a proper meal. But the weather was starting to change, and cold winds began to blow. Max told Yannick they had to build a bunker to survive the coming winter. Otherwise, they would freeze to death. Together, they worked hard and built a small but strong shelter deep in the forest. Max once told Yannick, "When all this ends, you'll help me sell my paintings. We'll earn lots of money and eat as much as we want every day." He often imagined the world he would paint, Even in hiding, he kept drawing in his mind. But as the cold grew harsher, food became scarce. Even when a rabbit got caught in their traps, larger animals would take it before they could. One day, while searching for food, a group of hunters spotted them. These men hunted Jews for rewards. Max and Yannick ran for their lives as the hunters chased them like wild animals. At one point, Yannick fell, and Max couldn't help him. He kept running and hid behind a tree, trembling. Later, when he returned to their shelter, he was overjoyed to find Yannick alive and safe. Completely broken, Max said, "My mother lied. I'm not brave." But Yannick looked at him and said, "Yes, you are." One night, Max said to Yannick, "I'm starting to forget my family's faces." Yannick looked at him and asked, "You'll never forget me, right?" Max frowned. "Why would you say that?" Yannick smiled sadly and said, "When you grow old and your hair turns white, will you still remember me?" Max stayed quiet for a moment, then said, "I always thought God had abandoned me, but maybe he sent you to me instead." The next morning, the sound of gunfire woke them up. They gathered their courage and went to see what had happened. Nearby, they found the bodies of Jewish people lying on the ground. They immediately knew it was the Germans doing. Max told Yannick to take the victims' clothes. They would need warm clothing to survive the cold. Just then, they heard a baby crying from across the river. Max wanted to save her, but Yannick warned, "We'll have to cross the river and the water's freezing. We could get sick." But Max couldn't leave the child behind. So both of them crossed the icy water and rescued the little girl. Max carried her back to their hideout, and they quickly changed into dry clothes to keep from freezing. The baby cried nonstop, and Yannick said, "If someone hears her, we'll be caught." Max managed to calm the baby down, gently holding her until she stopped crying. But Yannick was still trembling with fear, unable to relax. He decided to go out alone to find something for them to eat, hoping to help in some way. While searching for food, a group of Russian soldiers noticed Max. They didn't harm him, but one of them took his knife and told him he shouldn't be there, warning him that it was dangerous. Max nodded silently, realizing he was lucky they didn't take him away. When Max returned to the forest, he felt lost and unsure where to go next. With no safe option left, he decided to take the baby to Yasko's house. When Yasko saw Max standing at his door, alive and carrying a baby, he was completely shocked. So many months had passed that Yasko had believed Max was already dead. Yasko quickly took the baby from his arms, looking both amazed and proud. He told Max that he had proven how strong and brave he truly was. Max told him about Yannick, explaining that his friend was very sick and couldn't move much. Yasko looked concerned and said, "The Russians are very close now. The Germans are fleeing the area. When it gets dark, bring your friend here. The danger is finally ending." Hearing these words filled Max's heart with hope. He immediately ran back to Yannick, who was lying weakly on the ground, burning with fever. Max tried to keep him warm, covering him with his own coat, and said, "The war is over, Yannick. We can finally go home." Yannick said, "It's good. Now you can meet your family again." Max replied, "Now you are my only family." He told Yannick to rest and then lay down beside him. After some time, when Max opened his eyes, he tried to wake Yannick up, but Yannick had died. Seeing this, Max couldn't believe it. Losing his only friend broke his heart completely. He sat there in shock, unable to move. At that moment, Yasko came there to take him. He hugged Max tightly and said that the Germans had left the area. But when he saw that Yannick had died, he felt very sad. They buried Yannick right there in the same place. After that, Jasko took Max back to his house. Then, one day, they received the news that the war had ended. The German soldiers were leaving Poland. When Max heard this, he started crying. Those were tears of happiness. A few days later, Max returned to his own home, but his mother and sister were no longer alive. At the end of the film, we see the real Max, now an old man. He says he always wanted to know what happened to the little girl that he and Yannick had saved all those years ago. Now, after 75 years, he has finally come to meet her. The girl, too, has grown old, and her children are with her at the hospital. Seeing her again fills Max with deep happiness. He asks, "Do you remember how Yannick and I saved you?" Yannick was so brave, he risked his own life. Max holds her hand for a long time, lost in memories. And with this, the film comes to an end. A truly beautiful and heartfelt story worth watching.